Okay. And just to confirm right quick, John, can you see the slides that I'm sharing before I get this going?
I can.
Aces. Okay. So thank you again for all of you for joining us today. We're very excited to bring you our session. We are blessed in that we have John Landgrave, who will be our presenter today. And today's session is all about managed environments and governance in the Power Platform. We do aim to provide a digital event today that respects all individuals. We ask that everyone assist in providing a welcoming and safe environment. And we bring 3 of these events to our customers every month, with each taking place on Thursdays, usually at 2 p.m. Eastern. If there is a topic that you would like to hear about in the future, please post it in the chat now for our consideration. And we'll also have a feedback form at the end where you can share those ideas as well. To minimize distractions or potential background noise today, we are going to leverage the chat for questions. Please post your questions in the chat at any time during today's session. We'll have folks that will get back to you. We are joined by several folks within Microsoft that'll help us sort of keep an eye on that. And additionally, we do send follow-ups via email. These follow-ups will contain the recording link, the deck used by our presenters, if we're able to share that out. And if you don't want to be included in the follow-ups in the future, please just reply and let us know. We'll take you off that distribution list. And with that, thank you very much, John Landgrave, for presenting on this topic today and helping our customer to get the most out of their investment in Microsoft's business application. So if you would, please, sir, take it away.
All right, thanks so much, Greg. So as Greg mentioned, my name is John Landgrave. For those of you who don't know me, I'm on our internal global black belt team. That team works with our field folks like Craig and Doug and others, as well as with our product group. And so our goal is to work with our customers and with our field folks to help implement some of our more advanced technologies, and also to serve as experts at a 300 or 400 level on any new technologies that we introduce. A great function of that, one of the main functions of that, is to be able to go in and take the feedback we get from our customers in our field and work with our product group to go through and make sure that that feedback comes back into the product. So always interested in hearing your feedback or any other advice or other things that you have seen from your experience or from these kinds of presentations to make sure we're delivering the right content. What I have been working on primarily over the last couple of years is on governance and security and enterprise integration on the Power Platform. I work with some of our largest customers. In the last year, I've worked with customers anywhere from 10,000 to 200,000 seats, rolling out the Power Platform across their entire organization. And so a lot of the work that I do is trying to work with both customers and with our product group to make sure that we have the functionality available that allows our customers to be comfortable that they can manage and deploy our platform at scale. And so you'll hear me use some terminology today. When I talk about the managed Power Platform or the managed platform, what I'm talking about specifically is that you have made a decision to take, initially customers will take a portion of their platform and begin using our managed environments functionality, which gives you additional capabilities to manage at scale. And we'll look at some of that capability here during the presentation today. And put a structure in place that allows users to begin working in what we call a green zone environment, so they can build things and they have a lot of flexibility, but they can't share that with anyone else, nor can they take it and deploy it. So it gives you a nice sandbox to play in, with the ability to innovate and then work with the owners of the platform to make sure that that content can then be go through some kind of a lifecycle management process and then deployed. And we'll kind of look at what those elements are as we go through the presentation. One of the first things, and probably one of the most important things to talk about, is what does it look like to be on a fully managed platform, and where are those lines? And so, one of the first things I want to bring up is that we made a fairly major change in the last 12 to 18 months, in that we have taken the platform and we have introduced a very detailed API now. So a lot of folks may or may not know that a couple of years ago, the state of the platform was that our admin center and a lot of our tools would go directly at the underlying assets. So we might have a tool that one tool that implemented connections in one way and another tool that implemented connections a different way. And so to really get the platform more stable and supportable, there's been a lot of effort over the last couple of years to introduce an API layer over the platform. So when you start, as you see in the diagram here, when we talk about having your tenant and then having the admin center, the biggest change that's happened over the last 18 months, in my opinion, is now that we have a very robust API, and that API is scriptable, and everything in the Power Platform admin center is also based on that API. So which is one thing that's not been the case in the past, which is certainly now the case going forward, is that if you can do something in the admin center, then that is based on an API, which you could also automate. So, one of the big things about organizations, especially as they get larger, is they recognize to really support any platform at scale, you have to have the ability to script against it, because it simply isn't scalable to go through and have to configure a bunch of things using a graphical user interface. So that's the first kind of major thing, and we've talked about this before, but I'm going to show you kind of more evidence of that and how that works as we go through today. Most of you have probably come from what we call the productivity side. That is, you have been building with the COE Starter Kit as your primary management interface, and then you've been building productivity applications using either the default environment or other unmanaged environments or Teams environments. And so when we refer to the productivity application stack, from a governance and security perspective, we look at that as being unmanaged, meaning that it doesn't take advantage of any of the managed services. And basically in that scenario, using only an O365 or A365 or G365, whatever that account is, but it's basically an Office 365 account that gives you the ability to write Power Apps, use flows in the context of those Power Apps, and to write Copilots, but only in the context of Teams. And so that's effectively the surface that you would use to build applications. In that case where that's your primary license, you're also, your primary mechanism for managing that stack is the COE Starter Kit. What we've done in the last couple of years is built out what we call the managed plane, and in that fully managed plane, you'll have an additional enterprise management layer with additional capabilities. You have this concept of a managed environment, where the managed environment has additional governance and security capabilities, and we'll talk through some of those things today. You can use any connector, including not just the productivity connectors, but all the enterprise connectors. And perhaps more importantly, you have the ability within this managed space to use what we call developer environments or personal developer environments, and then to use pipelines as a mechanism for application lifecycle management, to take applications or solutions and move them through a dev, test, QA, prod, however many phases you want them to go through. I should point out, although it's fairly straightforward, but obviously if you're using managed environments, using the enterprise capabilities, managed environments do require that everyone in that environment consuming anything in that environment has a premium license. So, the management, the managed environments and these additional management features are provided at no charge for customers who decide to upgrade and begin using premium features. Of course, when you're using those features, it also means that you're able to have additional capabilities to segment or to partition your tenant. So one of the things that we get asked about constantly, especially as it relates to operating at scale, is how can I take sections of my tenant and manage them as effectively subtenants? So be able to say, I want to take this group of environments, assign it to this group of users, and be able to go through, limit the storage that it's using, limit the capabilities that it's using, and effectively then partition your tenant into areas that can be managed individually, which are also opportunities to delegate management potentially to that group, whether that's a department or an agency or whatever. And so um, we obviously have a lot of customers who do only centralized management, but even in a centralized management scenario, the ability to partition the tenant, to simplify management, to have different sets of rules or different sets of connectors that are enforced in different partitions is a hugely valuable capability. But to the extent that you want to delegate or use hybrid administration, it also provides some additional benefits. And so this would let me, for example, take my tenant and break it down and give each agency or each department different capabilities, and then also let them have some level of self-governance over their own environments. When you're using this stack, then I'm able to use everything in the stack. So I can once I have an enterprise license, or enterprise licenses, then if I want to go through and use develop copilots or develop RPA or Power Automate, I can build all of these different solutions or applications using those components, and they can all be under the same management or governance umbrella. So we have some formatting issues, but that's fine. So what you would see there, if the format hadn't changed, is a beautiful announcement that tells you that the Power Platform Admin Center that has been in the commercial space since last November is now going to be released into government clouds, specifically the GCC and GCC High clouds, and that is going to happen in the next 2 weeks or so. So you'll see that then in early September, you will see the new capabilities. And so I'm going to show you this in a second, but keep the goal here was to really make this more task oriented, and we're really looking towards a day when you might be able to delegate different sections of the Power Platform Admin Center to different groups. So if you have a security officer, they can focus on the security area. If you have someone focused on the management and distribution and connectivity, for example, of environments, then they're going to be able to use the environment section. So this is really task focused. The other thing that's important to recognize is that this is scoped to user permission. And in fact, we do have capabilities in the admin center that will light up even if all I have is maker permission. So for example, if I'm the maker of a Copilot and I want to go through and get some information about how it's being used, I can come to the Power Platform Admin Center, and all I will see are the things that I have, that I own, right? So we do have the ability to go through and to scope the Power Platform Admin Center. We also will be, it won't be in this first release, but we will have the capability to basically eliminate the need to have the COE crawling, because your complete inventory will be accessible to you in the Power Platform Admin Center. And again, that will be scoped to user permission and capability. So again, the PPAC is an administrative surface that kind of sits across all the resources that are exposed in the cloud. The new Power Platform Admin Center uses the Power Platform APIs, which is really critical, because it's critical specifically because of this third point, which is that we are still not at 100% functional parity between what's in commercial and what's in GCC or high. And so one of the major goals in getting there, however, is to have a consistent Power Platform Admin Center, and then to have consistent functionality under the covers that can be exposed through this same interface. And so part of the reason we're introducing the Power Platform Admin Center for GCC, which again will be rolling out in early September. You should just see it light up, and I'll show you what that experience looks like. Then it will be easier for us to, as we implement new APIs, for those things to be just lit up in the Power Platform Admin Center. So I do expect that the pace of innovation that will increase, that we'll be able to get things out faster, which is important. And then the other thing that's from a scheduling perspective is that the current capabilities of GCC with a couple of new features are what's being exposed now. And our current plan is to get much closer to parity by the end of this calendar year. So the things that are advanced rules and some other things that are managed environment features in commercial now, if you have access to that, the goal is to get all of that stuff rolled up and out the door by the end of this year, early in 26. So, but this is a fundamental kind of fundamental technology that's going to be required for us to do that. So rather than just talk through this, because I don't want to put myself to sleep, we do want to talk about kind of, I want to do a quick demo here, and we're going to look over three things. We're going to look at how do I activate the Power Platform interface, first of all. Then we're going to kind of take a brief look at where from the old interface to the new interface, kind of where do I find things, what's the difference, how they're set. And then we're going to kind of walk through how would I begin this concept of managing at scale. And so I want to walk through some of the fundamental capabilities that are here and exposed. I want to walk through them from the context of the new Power Platform Admin Center, because we have exposed some new functionality in the admin center, in the new admin center, that doesn't exist in the current one. So to take advantage of some of these things, you'll need to have the new admin center running. So let's, I want to go ahead and switch over here to my screen and let me know when you, well, that's not good. You don't want to see more of me. Okay, here we go. So can everyone see the admin? This is the existing admin center. Okay, I see some thumbs up. Great. So this is the admin center you're seeing now, and I'm in our development or test environment for our global for GCC. So the first thing you'll notice, and one of the questions obviously is, well, how do I know if I can get to it or not? Well, what you will see, you will log in one day, and it will be a glorious day, and you will hear birds singing and angels humming, because they don't sing out loud, and there will be a toggle at the top that says try the new admin center. Okay, and so when you see that toggle and you press it, then obviously we'll change colors, because that's the only way you'd really know a difference. Notice that on the left-hand side that now the interface is much cleaner. So instead of having a bunch of words out there, you've got icons, and those icons are broken down by functional area. And so I'll just real quickly go through. So if I look at my manage area, so these are the different things that I would manage. So my environments, my groups, my overall tenant level settings, data connections, those kinds of things, as well as the individual products. And we won't get to all of these. But I do want to make sure that we at least show you kind of where that stuff is. So if it has to do with managing an asset, you're going to see that in the Manage tab. In the Security tab is where you'll see the ability to go through. And so one of the things you'll notice is that some of these things, like this calculating security score, you will likely see a screen, but you won't see the same level or depth of screens that you will see in commercial. So as I said before, we're moving some of the functionality over, so you might see a light version of that functionality today, but as we begin moving things over, then you'll see additional capabilities. And so here's where you'll go for setting up data policies, for example. You can go through and set up your tenant isolation or firewall, manage guest access, etc. You'll be able to see who has administrator privileges and define those or modify those in one place. So the other thing you'll see a lot in this new admin center is, rather than you having to go use the COE starter kit to go find something and then coming back here and modifying it, we're trying to give you some alternative views. For example, one of the common things I want to look at is who has privilege in admin and how do I change that? Okay. So again, you will not see this toggle until late August or early September. So this is not turning on until early September. It'll actually start rolling out in the next few days, but it takes a while for that to come out. So you won't see that. You won't see this right now, but you will see this shortly. You'll see things like your compliance for how do I turn on auditing, or how do I set my customer lockbox, etc. You will have a dedicated Copilot tab. So my dedicated Copilot tab will bring back information about copilots that are running, as well as additional learning that I can link to from my Copilot tab. And what you'll see over time is all of these tabs will begin expanding as new governance capabilities are lit up, or as new copilots and things get built and deployed in your tenant. Your deployment tab is going to have your pipeline activity, so I can go to, without having to go to my pipeline host, I can go see how many approvals are pending, how many failed deployments happen. So in one place, I can go through and see what is the state of my lifecycle management configuration across my tenant. And then again, if I were seeing this as an individual who had the ability to do approvals and not as a global or tenant admin, then I would only see my pending approvals. So everything will be scoped up to the user permission when we see that. Okay. I can even drill down to see which pipelines are active and which catalogs I have access to. Okay. And then you also have a licensing tab where I can go through and see what billing plans have been set up and how those have been configured. Here's where I would go set up all my capacity add-ons. So I have one place to go in and say where am I going to put these additional add-ons and in which environments these add-ons might go, et cetera. And then I have a support tab to view from. Okay. So that's the high-end kind of new organization. Again, as you can see, this is very, very functionally based. So if I have a primary Copilot administrator who deals more with Copilot than with the rest of the stack, then I can, have them operate generally on the Copilot tab, right? So now that we've kind of gone through what the infrastructure is or the new kind of overall layout of the Power Platform Center, I do want to take a few minutes and just drill in on this Manage tab and talk about what I have seen in terms of how customers are beginning to look at implementing a managed platform. And so one of the first things that we hear, and I'm sure most of you here have never heard this, but we actually do have customers who have a really cluttered default environment and are frustrated that there's a lot of extra stuff in there laying around or that they can't find the stuff that's valuable. So I realize many of you haven't experienced that, but if you have, then there is an opportunity for you to begin cleaning the closet out. And so one way to do that is to stop the bleeding. And what I mean by that is that you may decide that it makes more sense for people to build applications in a space where they have freedom and space to innovate, but they can't create a dependency by going out and sharing those applications with anyone else. Okay. And so what we have done at Microsoft is we've said, we really want to encourage makers to have the ability to innovate without allowing them to create scenarios that cause angst for administrators. We also want the ability to enable as many makers as we can in an environment. And one of the things that we have our customers constantly struggle with is if I want to have multiple makers all having capabilities, that's a problem today because I don't have the storage typically to give everyone their own maker environment at 1 gig per environment. And if I put multiple makers in the same environment and they're using Dataverse, and I give them the right to modify the schema, then I have situations where different makers can step on each other, right? So what we've done is twofold. One is we have reduced the dependency on tenant storage, meaning that we are giving you now environments that you can give to your users that do not consume your tenant storage. Okay. And then in addition, these environments can be dynamically provisioned, and you don't pay for the storage. Okay. So one of the first things we have customers looking at is how do I go through and use and create environments for my users to work in without creating either a management issue or a proliferation of unwanted code issue, right? And so first of all, let's talk about the concept of the developer environment. So if I go to environments and I click on new, and again, I have to be an admin to do this, then I will get a dialog, the classic dialog that allows me to create environments, or I'll just get to spinning circles depending on your circumstance. So when this comes up, what you'll see is that we have an additional environment type called a developer environment. So we have a dedicated type of environment called a developer environment. That developer environment, you can provision up to 3 developer environments for each individual user, and those developer environments are not charged to you to your company. They are limited. They're hard-coded and limited at 2 gig each. They, if not used, they will expire in 90 days. Let's try this again. Try to get back in and see if I just got a environment. There we go. Okay. So if I go through and I create this type, you'll notice I have this type called developer. You'll notice that the add a data versus data store is grayed out because there is no option. Every developer environment has to have a Dataverse store. The other thing you'll notice is that when you go and you create a developer environment, you also have the option of putting it inside of what we call an environment group. And so the beauty of the environment group is that if I set settings at the environment group level, they apply to every environment in that group. So by creating an environment group that has the capabilities that I want all those environments to have, I can then create those developer environments, put them in that group. So for example, if I want to limit sharing in all my developer environments, I can turn sharing off in an environment group rule. And then every time I put a developer environment in that group automatically then, any environment in that group, I've taken away their ability to share it, right? So that's a pretty critical feature if I want to make sure that people can use these environments, but can't share the things that they build in those environments. As an admin, it's important to note this create on behalf option, because as I mentioned, you can have up to 3 developer environments. If I don't click this option and I create this environment, this is being created with my credentials, which means I can create 3. And when I try to create the 4th one, then I'll get blocked. So we did have some customer issues before where people would start creating environments here and then going out and assigning someone to that environment as a sysadmin or customizer. And then they got to the 4th one and they got confused, right? So yes, and I saw all of this capability requires managed environments. Okay, so let's be clear about that. So you do need managed environments to be able to do environment groups and rules and set these things. Okay. So just to be clear. So again, back on that original diagram, I showed the unmanaged stack and the managed stack. This is all managed stack capabilities. It all requires managed environments. But notice if I click create on behalf, now I can go through and I can say, who do I want to be specified as the owner here? Okay. This should be fixed by the time I release it, but you should actually get a dialog box with a drop down that you can pick people. Otherwise, if you don't see that, you can put the email address in and it's just your resolve. Okay. So that's how I create it. That's one way to manually create a developer environment. The problem with this is that if I wanted to have 1,000 developer environments, I would not want to go through and manually create all of these individual environments and then have to assign all the capabilities manually. So that's where this concept of being able to go through and automatically create them comes in. And that capability is what we call environment routing. So you'll notice here that I have this tab in the environment group setting called environment routing. Okay. So when I go use environment routing, I'm able to say when someone goes to one of these interfaces, then instead of dropping them in the default environment, put them in their own developer environment. If that environment doesn't exist, then you should create it. Okay. So if I go to make.powerapps.com and I'm in the security group that I've got listed here, then instead of going into my into the default environment, if I'm in this group and I don't have one, I'll get a screen that flashes that says we're putting you in your own developer environment, and then you'll get moved to that developer environment. Now you can take the drop down and you can switch back to the default if you want to, but as long as you're in that developer environment, then I'll have the ability in that developer environment to go through and do whatever I'm able to do based on the connectors and the rules that are set for that environment. Okay. And again, I can go through and add up to 5 groups. And I can specify which environment group all of these should be placed in. Okay. So basically the settings that you saw on the earlier screen, which were what environment group do you want them to be in, is all taking place here. Now, as I work with customers, most customers don't just go in and turn on routing for everyone. Okay. So they'll start small by either with the IT group or one of their trusted partners or agencies. They will go through and say, we'll create a group and we'll route and we'll test with you. In fact, what a lot of customers do, because they haven't yet purchased a whole lot of licenses, they'll create a group called licensed users, and that will be the group that gets these developer environments. Because if they have the license, then that means not only can they use the developer environment with the full management stack, but they can also participate in lifecycle management and be able to go do dev, test, prod, etc. So as you begin wanting to test or prove out or create an MVP for what it looks like to have a fully managed platform, a great way to start is to start with just the licenses you have, the licensed users you have, give them developer environments and begin working through that process. So that's what routing does for you. Once you get routed and get ready, because you want to pay close attention to the screen I'm about to show you. It's very exciting. So once I get routed, I'm going to go to my new developer environment screen, and you'll notice that it created an environment called John Landgrave Dev, routed me there automatically. And starting in September, you will also have Plan Designer that you can light up so that your users can now begin to build Power Apps coding in the English language and having the applications generated for them. So that's the other thing that we actually we discussed this on a call yesterday, but I want to make sure everyone's aware that we will be also, in addition to having the Power Platform admins that are available, you will also have the Plan Designer, which allows me to go through and describe my application and interactively build an application using English prompts that includes Power Apps, flows, and the underlying Dataverse. Now, what's interesting is the Plan Designer uses the same AI capabilities that we expose in Power Apps and Power Automate that are part of your platform subscription. So nothing you do in Plan Designer requires Copilot Studio or requires any additional licensing. So as long as you have a premium license and you're using Plan Designer, and you have to have a premium license for primarily because everything that Plan Designer builds is in Dataverse. And so without a premium license, you wouldn't have Dataverse access. Okay. And I'm not going to go through do a complete overview of Plan Designer today. But what's really important to understand is that, one of the biggest issues we have that our customers have is that two things. One is that to get started, even building Power Apps, there has to be this kind of minimum level of knowledge of how to write a Power App. And not that that's difficult to do, but it is time consuming to do, right? So it's critical now that even a novice novice to the platform who has this capability can at least begin experimenting with building a Power App and the associated flows by going in and describing the application and having everything built for them. What's really interesting about this capability, especially in the context of developer environments, is you can have people go build these applications iteratively, just using, again, the English language describing, to the extent they have the capability to go tweak the underlying data structures and things, they can do that. But if they do happen to build something that is useful and you have other more experienced Power Apps developers in that group or team, then you can pick up the solution that has this application already built, take it out of this environment, move it to another environment where you have more experienced developers who can then take that application and take it forward. The other critical thing about this is that when you are building an application with Plan Designer, it also builds a plan, which means as soon as I give this plan to someone else, not only do I have the source code, but I have the intent behind the application fully documented. And as I iterate and continue building, if I use the Plan Designer interface to build through, then that plan will stay updated the whole time. Now, I know most of you require your users to build complete Word documents that describe the functionality of their applications in the productivity environment. So perhaps this isn't valuable to you. But going forward, if you want to make sure applications are fully documented from the beginning because the application was generated based on the description, this is a fantastic tool to make sure that you actually have functional specifications, including profiles, user stories, descriptions of functionality, etc. Okay. So, and I should point out, there is actually an additional gate that you will be able to set when this releases. So if you don't want everyone to have Plan Designer, then you don't have to enable Plan Designer. So that you can the default behavior is they will just go to their developer environment and it will just have make.powerapps.com. It would not have it won't have Plan Designer active. So you will have to activate Plan Designer to do that. Okay. You'll also notice because this is a managed environment. Oh, that's the wrong place. Let's go back and look at in the admin center. If I go look at a specific environment, I'm going to go back and look at my same dev environment. So what you had noticed when I went to that routing menu is that when new ones were added, that they were being put into this developer environment group. And so the developer environment group is the place where I can go in and I can configure rules that should be applied to all the developer environments that get created and placed in this group. And so I can go through and, for example, I can allow or turn off generative AI. I can prevent or allow agent sharing. I can set up sharing controls for Canvas apps. So, for example, if I want to exclude sharing and limit the number of users to 0, then what I've effectively done here by saving this is like I'm giving someone a developer environment and they can do whatever they want in it, but they can't share anything they build. Okay. So this is a great way to create what we call a green zone, where in that green zone, someone can innovate as much as they want within their developer environment, but it's a box they can't get out of. And so what you can do, though, is then set up another set of environments called, test and prod environments. So all of your test and production environments would be in that separate environment group. And in those environments, you would then configure a pipeline with either a tenant-wide pipeline host or a pipeline host specific to that environment set, and then configure their developer environment to be able to publish into that pipeline. So even though they can't share the app with anyone, they would be able to publish the application they built into a test environment and then be able to go through a dev test prod cycle. So again, the number of possibilities in terms of how you configure these different environments to create these different what we call green, yellow, and red zones with different levels of capability based on kind of where someone is in a process is really unlimited in terms of the capabilities. And then the way this is all configured is by going in and creating environment groups and giving them different sets of rules, or by creating pipelines, and then configuring those pipelines to route the traffic as the applications get promoted through those different environments. So that's kind of a high level of how you configure that stuff. Again, I'm not getting into great detail here. Happy to come back later. Over the last couple of months, I have actually helped two fairly large and notable GCC customers implement a 6 to 9 month plan for how they move from an unmanaged set of environments to a complete managed platform. I'm happy to come back and share kind of those thoughts and that process with you at some point in the future. But having gone through this, I have a lot of confidence that with what we are doing now and with what we are rolling out over the next 6 to 12 months, that being able to create a platform for your organization that is completely managed, that allows you to allow people to innovate in Power Apps with AI by building applications using English, and by controlling or managing Copilot Studio applications in their own developer environments, but using the same promotion capability. That you can move away from having kind of the Wild West things that are built inside of the default environment and move toward having applications that are built with purpose and deployed and managed with purpose. The other thing I want to talk about, and this is especially critical in GCC, because we do have situations, obviously, where there are capabilities in commercial that are not in our GovCloud yet. However, in many of those cases, the API is already available. We just don't have the API to manage the environment is there, but the surfaces like the Power Platform Admin Center services or some other rules, perhaps environment rules, haven't been implemented yet for GCC. So, what I've been working with some customers on is when they run into cases where they need some automation, but it's not yet exposed through one of the commercially available capabilities, then instead we can step back and say, well, let's just build a flow to do the same thing, and we'll use that flow until the other capability is released. And so the combination of doing some of our own scripting to kind of enhance the way that we manage, and then when those capabilities do get released, we'll just pull the script out and we'll use the native capability. So obvious question is, well, then how do I go see what's available from a scripting perspective? So if I go to powerautomate.com or make.gov. Whatever your link is, but that's the wrong one. Oh, it's supposed to be showing up. Okay. So what I want to show you is if I go through to create a flow, and I'm just going to show a quick flow example, but if I go and if I go and I edit my this flow that gets environment groups, you'll notice that there is now a new connector. And so just to give you some sense of how that is, if I go through here and type in admin. So you'll notice here as I go and look at the connectors, then there's this new, that's not the right one. Yeah, obviously going to fix our search capabilities. It was working earlier. I'm not sure why it's not bringing it back for me. I didn't think I'd have to write down what I typed, but I guess I'm getting old because I'm having trouble finding that. Okay. Well, we'll update the notes here to do that. But the thing I want to point out is that I now have the ability to go through and do things like list environment groups. I can create new environment groups. I can create new environments. I can create rule sets. I can modify Power Pages. Okay. So what's really important is that Power Platform API layer has been implemented now in the API, and that API layer that has been released into GCC and GCC High is the same API layer that's released into commercial. So a lot of the capabilities, even though they're not exposed through PPAC, are exposed through the API layer. And so just as a preview, a lot of the work that I'm doing right now with the product group and with customers is writing some of these flows and then that simulate some of the future capabilities so that we can go ahead and allow people to begin building some of these management capabilities while we wait on some of these new commercial capabilities to roll forward. So let me stop there. I see a lot of questions. I assume that a lot of that stuff has already been covered, but I do want to go ahead and give the meeting back over to Craig, and then we'll deal with any questions or comments that people want to come off mute.
Yeah, of course. All right, give me 1 second here, and I will share this presentation again. Bear with me. I'm going to have to jump back over to where we wanted to stop here. Okay, let me drop something into the chat for some follow-on stuff, and then I'll kind of wrap us up here. So we're going to try and do a Q&A session here, but do feel free to follow up with any questions if you have them, and let me go ahead and stop the recording.